Expiration of ultimatum. ECOWAS orders immediate deployment of its standby force to restore constitutional order in Niger. We would eliminate deposed President Mohamed Bazoum. Coup threatens ECOWAS on planned military intervention. Hello and warm welcome on the program Political Insights on VOS TV Niger. My name is Jude Agweke. The political disorder in Niger has been one topical issue of discourse in the nation's political space. Recently, the Economic Community of West African States reconvened in Abuja, the nation's capital, where they took some drastic decisions on the next line of action as regards the Niger's coup.
Direct the Committee of the Chief of Defense Staff to activate the ECOWAS standby force with all its elements immediately. Order the deployment of the ECOWAS standby force to restore constitutional order in the Republic of Niger. Underscore its continued commitment to the restoration of constitutional order through peaceful means.
The coupists on their parts have threatened ECOWAS that if they dare resort to military operation in Niger, they would eliminate the deposed president of the country, Mohamed Bazoum. This is even as the United States, US, queued behind ECOWAS in its decision to resort to use of force. Joining us on the discussion segment of the program via Zoom from the University of Benin is the head of Department of History and International Studies of the institution, Dr. Onobhayedo. Hello, Doctor. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
So, Doctor, we've seen the ECOWAS position on the political situation in Niger. So, as an international relations expert, what is your position? What is your view on the stance taken by ECOWAS?
Well, as we all know, ECOWAS is a regional body that is interested in the welfare of West African states. Although primarily it was constituted to address the economic needs of the sub-region and to reposition them within the Committee of Nations in that regard, it has in several situations concerned itself to political development within the sub-region. It has waded into various crises. You remember the case of ECOMOG and the decisive role ECOMOG played and ECOWAS played in bringing the crisis to an end in Liberia. And what is happening now? What is happening now is like a decision to intervene in the Niger situation. The measure that ECOWAS has taken so far has been somewhat systematic. The condemnation is understandable to condemn the coup because ECOWAS as a body stands for democracy. So anything that would thwart the development of the democratic order in any West African state, ECOWAS is bound to frown on it. So it is therefore not surprising that it has taken that position. So the new twist now is that ECOWAS appears to be mobilizing for war. But the statement they have made saying that the constituted force should be on standby is a bit vague. In warfare and diplomacy, that is not a term that can be properly or well positioned. It does not amount to declaration of war. It also does not amount to mobilization. Because before you embark on war, it is required by international convention that you must formally declare that war. So what we are seeing now are just maybe steps that may eventually end up there. So to mobilize will involve moving men and materials, moving your arsenal, deploying your missiles, your tanks, and positioning your infantry. So I'm not too sure that has been done yet. So to say that they should be on standby, for me, for now, is rather vague and does not seem to say much. As to what happens next, time will tell. Don't forget that the international community is watching, although they've had support from the West, massively from the West. There is also opposition from within Africa, even West Africa. Some of the neighboring states where the military has taken over power are also mobilizing public opinion in support of the Niger coupists. And you never can tell, they too may be willing to deploy their soldiers in their support. So if in a headlong confrontation, when we now have a clash of the various armies, then they will turn Niger to a theater of war. And that may not be good for the people. Certainly it will not be good for the economy. There is no doubt it will become a harbinger of destruction and retrogression. So I won't be an advocate of a military attack on Niger. Niger is a sovereign state, it's a sovereign country. They have their constitution. Though now they have issues, they should be allowed to resolve their problems by themselves. If ECOWAS is going to intervene, the sanctions are okay, persuasion is okay. If those ones are not working, I don't think an outright attack would be a good option because of the consequences that will follow.
Do you think ECOWAS would be able to withstand the Niger coupists should they embark on military operation in the country?
No, what ECOWAS, if I want to put it in another way, ECOWAS is trying to use an instrument we call deterrence. They are mobilizing as a way of striking fear, into the Nigerian coupists. In diplomacy, that's what you call deterrence, like I have said. There's also what you call escalation of conflict. So one of the ways of resolving the conflict is by way of escalation. It sounds counterproductive because when you say to escalate, it appears to mean that you are making the situation worse. Escalation of conflict may also imply that you are bringing to the table the consequences that either of the party will suffer, that your adversary will suffer, should there be an outright attack. So they are hoping that by this measure they have taken, the coupists will be deterred. This escalation is supposed to strike fear into them, to give them the impression that war is now imminent, to see whether they will backtrack. All right? But if there is now war, you never can say where it will go. It's very difficult to predict the war of this nature. Russia and Afghanistan, everybody would have thought that, Ukraine rather, that Ukraine will easily be run over. But it hasn't happened. All right? So that you have mobilized against Niger, the people are resolved. The military junta have the backing of the people. We have seen massive support. So you will not just be fighting the Nigerian army, you'll be fighting with the people who may come out with spoons and knives and cutleries and cudgels, whatever they have, in support of their army. We've seen the US take on Vietnam. And it's whatever victory they had then was certainly Pyrrhic victory, if they had it at all. People even believe that the Vietnamese won the war. So these days, it is very difficult to determine how any war would go. So ECOWAS should tread softly. That's my candid advice.
Another thing we've also seen in this whole situation is that the junta, the Niger's junta, they are vowed to eliminate the deposed president of the country, Mohamed Bazoum. So to you, do you think this is just a mere threat, or the junta, they mean business?
No, it falls in line with one of the strategies of conflict resolution that I described earlier on as deterrence and escalation of conflicts. That's the same style they have used there. By escalating the conflict in that manner, they also feel that their adversary will be dissuaded. So if you are mobilized to attack us and we have issued the threat that we're going to eliminate some persons that are under house arrest, you may, as a result of that, consider refraining from your plans. So it is a strategy in conflict management. That is it. It's a strategy. You raise the game to see whether your opponent will buckle. It's the same thing ECOWAS has done by raising the game to see whether your opponent will blink. It's like first to blink. So it's a strategy in international relations.
We have in time past witnessed a lot of coup in West African sub-region. What factors do you think account for coup in the West African sub-region?
Well, so many factors are responsible for coups. All right? I wouldn't say it is lack of military discipline. It would be too simplistic to say the various armies are not disciplined. If they were disciplined, they probably would not have done that. Some people will want to think along that line. But when the people are pushed down to the wall, when they are repressed so much, when corruption begins to stink to the high heavens, when nepotism becomes the order of the day, when the economy is plummeted, the commonwealth of the people plundered by a few hands in the name of being democratically elected, then the people can get agitated. The people can get agitated. And you can't, the right to protest is aimed at birth. You can protest. So, military coup may not be an extreme form of protest. You may say, yes, I won't mind painting it that way. It will be an extreme form of protest against bad leadership, against corruption, against nepotism, sectionalism, and the gross abuse of power, human rights abuses of all sorts. These are some of the things we see in West Africa. Rigged elections that we also call to question the legitimacy of the governments in power. We see leaders changing the constitution so as to extend their stay in power by dubious and devious means. That's happened again and again. And those who bear the brunt of this untoward development are the people. We are the poorest of the poor, this part of the world. What accounts for that is leadership. Leadership. We have all the resources that we need. We don't lack in human capacity in terms of brain and all that. But a clique of persons that have enriched themselves with the wealth of the people are now constituting themselves into a new form of aristocracy. The kind of aristocracy that was fought in medieval Europe and pulled down. The gains of the struggle in Europe gradually percolated to this side of the world. And now, aristocracy is being reinstalled. We are having a band of powerful people, not necessarily by birth this time, but by means of ill-gotten and stolen wealth. So this is getting to the nerves of the people. West African leaders should do a rethink, and they should rule for the people so that Africa can make progress. We have stayed too long as bootlickers and beggars, going to IMF, approaching the Paris Club, other countries. We're all over the world begging. Yet we are so well endowed in terms of resources. It's shameful. So this is my take on the matter.
The ECOWAS decision is coming despite calls by traditional rulers, political leaders, and even religious leaders that they should ensure use of diplomacy and not military intervention. So, as an expert, what option do you think would be better employed by the ECOWAS other than military intervention?
I think they should stick to persuasion and negotiation. For me, that is the only option that is viable. Anything done outside that may be infringing on the comfort of the Nigerians and even their right to live. Don't forget that any warfare would always end up with so many lives being taken. All right? To what end? To what end? Negotiate with the people. Keep talking with the people. You can apply sanctions, right? You can apply sanctions. You can sustain your sanctions for as long as you wish. The West are intervening in Ukraine, but they have not declared war on Ukraine. They are supporting Ukraine by whatever means, financially and materially, but they have not come out to declare war, which they could have done. NATO is there, but they have not done that. So an act of war, it should not be something you approach carelessly. All right? You will not be approach. It's like a capital decision. It's like capital punishment. The consequences are grave. Not only for Niger, even for us at Nigeria. Don't forget that there are Nigerians there. We own businesses there. Some Nigerians have homes there. Some are schooling there. So if we are mobilizing, although what they have done now, I don't see it as mobilizing as such. If you are issuing such threats, one would have expected that you begin to carry out sorties. You fly in and out, evacuating Nigerians from there, closing the Nigerian embassy and things like that. One would have those steps should be forerunners. They should be the precursor of any military intervention. Right? Nigerians are there. You have not evacuated them. You are not. I don't think they have even issued warning for them to leave on their own. So we can't put the cart before the horse. For me, the military option should be eschewed completely. If the coupists refuse to budge, then let it be the business of the people of Niger. Let them be the ones to mobilize and bring down that regime. If they don't want them, they should do something to bring them down. Right? If we have not heard of being high-handed now. They are just coming in. We don't even know their plans yet. I'm not an advocate of coups either. Now that it has happened, we should tread softly.
Nigerians are beginning to express fear on the ECOWAS decision to embark on military operation in Niger. What do you think would be the effect of such decision by the ECOWAS?
Well, number one, it will hamper trade. The flow of goods and services across the Nigerian border is massive. There's a very huge flow of capital and of humans across those borders. That will be truncated automatically. And in the place of what used to be harmony, you will now have destruction. And don't also forget that if they develop the capacity and they receive support, these days you don't only fight physically by rifles and guns, you also use missiles. Supposing they are able to acquire such and begin to launch such into Nigeria. Because warfare now takes that shape. So you may just assume that we can overrun them. It may not just be easy like that. They may acquire missiles with the support from some other countries and start firing them randomly into Nigeria, causing mayhem. So let us not start it. As to whether it will affect us, there is no war you are back on that will not affect. Even the whole of West Africa will be affected. Because ECOWAS is not just one country. Several countries are mobilizing. And Niger now has support too. The coupists also have support from some countries in West Africa and beyond. So it's going to be several countries against several countries. And Nigeria may not just go unscattered. There may be some consequences, economic and otherwise.
The US have also thrown their weight behind ECOWAS in its decision to resort to use of force in Niger. So as an expert, do you think the US is towing the right path?
Well, if the Americans get themselves involved, that would be a very big factor because of the enormity of resources that are at their disposal. the skills they possess, the science, technology, the warcraft that they have built up over the years. You don't take them for granted because they have the capacity. If they lend their support, of course, that will make whatever war that will occur more devastating. To make it more devastating. And why do nations offer such support? Most times it's as a result of selfish interests. The Americans pride themselves as being the father of democracy, the bastion of democracy, a place from which democracy can radiate to the rest of the world. Wherever something like a coup takes place, of course, they frown at it. And so it's not surprising that they have taken their position. We should also realize that they have interests in the resources, the natural resources that are available in Niger. So there is an economic undertone to their decision. And that is a fallout from their national interests. Right? It's not the interest of West Africa, neither is it the interest of people of Niger, neither is it because they care so much about Nigeria or or ECOWAS. It is because they have a drive that derives from their national interests.
Doctor, thank you for your contribution.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Dr. Onobhayedo on the political developments in Niger and the ECOWAS decision to resort to use of force to restore democratically elected president of the country, Mohamed Bazoum, to power. So we'll take a short break. When we return, the way forward to resolve the political disorder in Niger. Please don't go away. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and thank you for staying tuned on the program. We've been looking at the political situation in Niger and the position of ECOWAS, their stance to resort to use of force. So we'll go back to Dr. Onobhayedo of the University of Benin. Thank you, Doctor, for your contribution so far. Finally, just before we round off the program, we want to know what is your advice for the coupists in Niger, the ECOWAS, and even the US?
Well, my advice to the Niger coupists is, number one, they should not violate human rights. They should be mindful of that because the world has gotten to a stage where human rights are now of great concern. And because it's a human affair, you don't now expect that people will leave you alone when you carry out abuses on fellow humans. In the world of today, they will not leave you alone because there are United Nations regulations to that effect. There are grounds under which other nations can interfere or can intervene, even in the domestic affairs of another country. Abuse of human rights is one of such. Right? When all efforts have been made, it may become necessary to use stricter measures. So they should learn not to abuse human rights. They should also negotiate. All right? So they should keep the windows of negotiation open. They have a mission. While considering what they have in mind, the plans that they have, they should not just shut their doors. They should not shut their ears so that the world can reach them. The world can also see what they are doing so that they will not now give excuse or sufficient reason for an attack to take place. But for ECOWAS, I think they should also tread softly. They should give enough room and enough time for negotiation. Even the police, if they are interrogating a criminal, sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes it takes a very long time for you to conduct an act of interrogation and get something out. The criminal may be in denial for months. So the police is not then at liberty to begin to use foul means, unapproved means, to extract, by way of torture and all that, to extract information from the accused. So they stick to what is fair and regular.
Thank you, Dr. Onobhayedo. That is the much we can take from you on the program. We appreciate your contributions.
Thank you.
And that is where we round off the program, Political Insights on VOS TV Niger. Do well to subscribe to this channel, turn on notification button to get updates. My name is Jude Aweke. Bye for now.